Okay, let's go over quiz 1, simplifying radical expressions. This is only two problems. The instructions say simplify the following rational expression, identify any exclusions on defined values. So all this is we're looking at the definition or how rational expressions work. And again, rational expression, all that is just a fraction, but it's an algebraic fraction. It has numbers and variables. So just like with fractions, what we're going to see here is we're going to see if it reduces. So just like, I don't know, the fraction 3/6 reduces down to what, 1/2? These rational expressions, these fractions also reduce. And the way they reduce is that the factors cancel out. So let's see how that works. Let's look at number 1. Number 1 says 27n/6n minus 27. So first, we have to look at the factors to see if anything cancels out. Can we break down 27 into its factors? We can break down 27 into what? 3 times 9n, right? That's 27n. 3 times 9 is 27. And what about the bottom? Can I take out, what can I take out from 6 and 27? I can take out a 3, right? I cannot take out any n's because this one doesn't have an n. So after I take out a 3, what's left over? I have 6n. So what's left over is a 2n. Why? Because 2n times 3 is 6n. And then after I take out a 3 from here, I'm left with minus 9. Why? Because negative 9 times 3 is negative 27. So right here, we see that we have a common factor. You see how 3 times 9n, 3 times this, 2n minus 9, these 3's cancel out because they're factors at the top and the bottom, and the only thing that's left over is 9n over 2n minus 9. Now, we do have to take into consideration the undefined values. Undefined values, or the exclusions, what that means is what are the numbers that I cannot plug in. Think about fractions. Fractions is just like a division problem, 27n divided by this bottom part. And remember, when we're dividing, we're not allowed to divide by 0. What happens when you divide by 0? You get an error. So when does that happen? Well, you have to solve for the denominator equaling to 0. So we can actually start right here when it's already factored. 3 never is equals to 0, but 2n minus 9 cannot equal to 0. If I move this is just like solving an algebra 1 problem. Move the 9 over. 2n cannot equal to 9. Divide both sides by 2, and cannot equal to 4.5. So this is the value that I cannot plug in, because if I do wind up with an error, undefined value, cannot divide by 0. Now let's look at number 2. I have n minus 2 over n squared minus 6n plus 5. Same thing, it's a fraction, it's a rational expression. I want to see if it reduces down. The only way it reduces down is if it has factors at the top and at the bottom. So let's see if we can break this down into its factors. We have an n minus 1 at the top, n minus 1. And at the bottom, this is a quadratic, so I'm assuming I can factor it. And remember, how do we factor this? We look for two numbers that multiply to 5 and add up to negative 6. So the factors of 5 are 1 and 5. When you add them, that's a positive 6. So that means that both of these have to be negative, because negative 1 times negative 5 is positive 5. Negative 1 plus negative 5 is negative 6. So there's going to be n minus 1 times n minus 5, because those are my two factors. Now you see that we have an n minus 1. This is actually, we can count this as one piece. N minus 1 at the top, n minus 1 at the bottom. They're factored, so this cancels out, and this reduces 1 to 1 over n minus 5. And that's it. It doesn't break down any further. Now, what about the exclusions? The exclusions happen whenever you end up dividing by 0. You're actually going to look at this step right here before you cancel anything out. You cannot plug in, this bottom part cannot be 0, so that means you cannot plug in what? From here, you cannot plug in a positive 1. 1 minus 1 would equal to 0. So n cannot equal to 1. And what would I plug in right here that would make it mess up? A 5. So again, you would just solve for this one, n minus 5. If we plug in a 5, that's bad. So this is your reduced rational expression. These are your exclusions, and that's it.